Mhm. In the film, Gilad and all that jazz, the most moving part was at the end when you spoke. You want to speak about that? If not,
about me being killed.
No, Tully said, and you could, either of you can correct me if I've got it wrong. It's taken me a long time to understand how much it means to Gilad. Why? And I can't remember anymore.
To start with, the fact that it took Tali so long is very reasonable. But the fact that she got there is much more significant. It took her a long time, because she's not very political, B, she grew up in a house that was affected severely by the Holocaust. Both her parents lived in Europe at the time and had to work out for their survival, like many other Europeans, but I understand it. What is interesting for me is that by the time, it's very hard to be my follower, because by the time you think that you catch up, I'm always in a different place. I'm sorry about it, but it's probably because I'm a jazz musician.
You've given good reasons, and I mean, it doesn't have to be that personal. It is a hard thing to live with.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to live with if you're the person themselves.
Exactly.
It's a very difficult position to be in. I was talking to Tali about this before you came down. About you see, you don't feel this.
I
don't think you do.
Listen, man, I finished my new book. Listen, I finished my new book. Basically, and there are 3 chapters, 4 chapters, 5 chapters that I have to write, and I have them here, and I cannot write them. I cannot write them because there are too.
You cannot dare to say what you have to say.
I cannot dare to even read what I have to say or what I think. One chapter is about the devastating impact of Frankfurt School, the splitting of society into small margins. I show how this predominantly Jewish school.
What's so devastating about that?
I show how this predominantly Jewish school, and I talk about it in my talks now, and this is my way to deal with it, because I think that I will probably have to ask my daughter or my son to transcribe my talks. How this predominantly Jewish school have created or facilitated the condition through identity politics and so on, and people, my followers can follow my talks about it, how they facilitate the condition for the invasion of globalization and the elimination.
Why is this so devastating?
Because it is really Jewish progressive politics at the heart of the destruction of the West. This is exactly what Heidegger
and why is that?
And
why is that devastating?
It's I'm saying, you can see that I managed to say it.
You struggle to understand. You struggle to find the truth. Right?
No. I know the truth. So I struggle to find the words when it comes to put ink on paper. I'm dealing with it. I'm talking to you about it in front of a camera. I'm not trying to hide it.
Okay, well we can
No. I'm.
Why?
You're,
Why can you not find the words? It's not that you can't find the words. You can speak and you can write. Why?
You want to know.
What is that? What is
You
it
want
about
to know
that
now,
truth that is so devastating and frightening?
Because I know that the protagonist was still leading this irresponsible, devastating attempt to destroy the West, are going to be punished, and I really.
So it's devastating because the truth is that the Jews, and when I say the Jews, I mean the Jews who are active in this.
Yeah.
I mean, all Jews are culpable to a degree, but to me, when I talk about the Jews, I mean all the Jews that are involved, and there's a lot of them. The Jews are destroying.
Yeah, the way that I would say it, which is slightly more careful, I can definitely see how Jews as a collective may very soon find themselves punished severely by crimes against humanity, against our culture, against universalism, against ethics that were committed intellectual crimes by just a very few. And I find it very hard to deal with this because once you're a truth teller, and I don't claim to know know the truth, but I'm struggling with the truth. You find it very, very difficult to find the right ethical path to explore.
You mean because of the consequences of your truth?
Because you understand
but
the consequences.
You see, and I understand this completely. You said, I'm not an activist, I'm a philosopher, or whatever. And I know when you say things like that, I know that one can never draw clean lines between these things. And what you're saying now is you're fearful of what the truths you have to tell can lead to.
Yeah, and I'm not fearful for myself here.
No. Your own fearlessness about your personal safety has been demonstrated over and over again.
And this was just one chapter. When I tell, it's very easy for me to say that I'm a philosopher and I'm just dealing with the questions and refining the question and I don't know the answers. But when I'm sitting in a room with Palestinians and I know what I'm talking about. I'm a clever boy. And I present them with evidence and I present some diagrams. And I told them, listen, we have a problem. Your elite is dysfunctional and it is confronted with some of the most, and they understand that I'm telling the truth.
So in the room there's relief.
There is a relief, and they ask me, what do we do next? And I tell them I don't know.
And when you tell the Jews you're heading for disaster,
yeah,
you get a completely different response.
When it comes to Jews, and I never talk in particular to Jews. This year I made one concert that was probably for Jews. I played in a room and I even had the head of the Zionist Federation there, and they all knew about my politics, by the way. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Can you believe it? And they thought, we don't like your politics, but we like your music. And it was great. You were there, huh?
That's nice.
It was amazing. It's a funny story. I played in this house before, 5 years ago. And they said that it was the best concert they ever had. They do concerts twice a week. It's beautiful people. At the time of Operation Caslet, this guy called me, Gilad, I can't stand what you wrote about it, because I usually don't sell my entire list, my writing, but I was so devastated. There was kind of white phosphorus attack and awful pictures, and I sent it to my entire list of 5,000 people or something like that. And he wrote to me, I hate what you said today, it's awful, you're a Nazi or whatever. I don't think they said I'm a Nazi. The next concert is cancelled. And I told him, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think that we scheduled any concert. in your house. He told me, it doesn't matter, it is cancelled anyway. Anyway, and then after 2 weeks, I saw the guy in my concert. Here in Czechoslovakia, in the 606. So I thought maybe it was someone else that called me in the corner. I thought, did you call me 2 weeks ago to cancel a concert that didn't exist? Because if not, I have a problem because somebody else canceled a concert. And he told me, yeah, it was me. So what are you doing in my gig? It doesn't matter, I love your music, we are crazy. And he never...
Good man.
And we invited them to our... because he always told me, we want to bring you to our house and we can't because of your politics. I thought, listen, it's okay, I'm very busy as a musician. You know, just come to my concert, don't worry about it. And then we ended up doing the concert. I did something unique and we put it there. And the house was packed. And it was packed with the old hardcore Zionist Jews. Some of them are really at the top of the Zionist echelon in this country. And they loved me. It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And they may be the people who send me kind of threatening letter the day after. They are very unique people. They are very unique people and they are a lot of fun. I understand why you want to be a Jew. I'm coming from a very different place. I'm in Israel.
That's right, absolutely.
I'm in Israel.
Absolutely.
So
there's a difference.
And I see it very simply. Very simply. You know,
You see, you just don't get the fun of it all, do you?
I
All you know about is dying for this and winning that and liberating. You just don't get the fun.
Maybe. But there is something that I have to tell you. As Israelis, my generation, I didn't visit Israel for 20 years. I just know about it because my scholarship involves with a lot of reading a lot of Israeli texts and Israeli daily reports in Hebrew. We identified with the land. It sounds very idiotic.
Pardon?
Yes. It's very important.
I wouldn't know the land if it came up and gave me a kiss.
Because you're not a patriot.
Because I'm a Jew. Jews don't know about land.
Exactly. Zionism said Jews, early Zionism,
need to love the land.
Need to know how to love the land.
Yeah.
So they brought us there, and we start, and I read. Probably these names don't mean a thing to you, but I read my favorite book as a kid was the diary, not of Anna Frank,
Nordau.
Not Nordau, of Meir Zion. Meir
He was the mayor.
No. He was.
Oh, I know he was. He was a mad hero, a mad lunatic hero in the 60s. Who went traipsing into Syria and yes.
He was the most fearless Israeli. Now this is his diary.
Yeah.
This is his diary from the age of. I have to find this book from 14, 15, and he would be living in a kibbutz and he would take the bike and poof into Jordan, and the other day he crossed the border and goes, and I wanted to be, a marathon, and we were, a lot of us, we were running with, do you call it jerrycan still? With water, with water tanks on your back.
You wanted to get hurt and die.
I took it as a kind of and it's a lot of fun. You live to the age of 18, 19, and you're liberated. You don't have to go to study in university to find a woman, kids, blah blah blah. The problem is if it doesn't work, and you're left paralyzed. There are some concerns with dying.
Dying's not
that
so
it doesn't work. Exactly. It's risky. It's risky because it doesn't work. But you have to understand. I believed. I went every week. I would spend 2 days in the desert, in a kind of a survival mission, and we loved it. It was very, we believed in fitness. We were a mirror image of Nazi Germany living philosophy.
And is this why you don't fear?
I think that now I think that this fearlessness is something that is at the heart of my philosophical and intellectual activity now. I don't give a damn about anything. And one of the problems that they have with me is that they start to realize now that I really love to be attacked. I make a lot out of it. You know what I told them? You know what I tell my, maybe you heard me saying it before, but it's kind of a new line.
That's what
When
I
you
remember
understand-
when they were booing you in it was in the Royal Festival Hall, one of their rooms,
Yeah.
and you went like this. Went,
Listen, I have a big nose, but the issue here, if you think of Jewish cognitive elite,
Yeah.
Jewish cognitive elite,
no, I understand everything now, Gilad.
no,
I
check
do.
it
I
out,
understand everything.
Check it out. If you think of Jewish cognitive elite as this kind of as
You're no Jew.
an attempt to bond
You're no Jew.
money and scholarship.
Yeah.
Money and scholarship. This you can start to understand. Why the Jewish scholar, the Jewish intellect, is also extremely good in marketing.
Mhm.
The Jewish revolutionary. You know, there was Marx and there was Engels, but everybody remembers Marx. And there was Freud, but there was Jung, who was much more interesting, but everyone remembers Jung.
Mhm.
And then you remember Freud. Sorry, everybody remember Freud. Yeah, because he was running this clique of, he tried to use Jung as a Sabbath goy, and didn't succeed for long. And then you have even Weininger. He was a Jew, and his ideas were extremely popular. And then you have Chomsky. Have you heard Chomsky saying anything really interesting? No, never. I tell people, I use now things I have to keep. In the army, you used to put matches because we know that you are tired.
He's a nice man.
Very nice man.
nice man.
Very nice man, but intellectually lame. Is the opposite of an intellectual. An intellectual, I tell my audience and my readers, intellectual is a person that stimulates you to think independently. Chomsky is doing the opposite. He just, drop all those kind of cherry-picked facts that support his awkward theory to start with. Very embarrassing. And look at me. I'm so good in marketing. I'm using my opponents better than anyone else. When The Wandering Who came out, it's a small publishing house. They told me, listen, we allocated $1,500 for the UK PR. And this is my money. So I called them after 2 months. I said, what did you do with the £1,500? They said, Gilad, to be honest, nothing. It's brilliant the way you use your opponents. We never had such a successful, So yes, I'm also like a proper Jewish aristocracy master of marketing. The only problem is that I don't use it to advance the Jewish interest, but quite the opposite. But I use my brain very effectively. And I, by the way, feel that I have the capacity to bring down this very dangerous culture. As I said, my only fear is that I may cause something that is colossally far greater than what we should achieve, and this is why I'm concerned and I'm searching for the word, because I want to tell the truth. I won't lie. This is something that I won't do.
But it could lead to
everything I say. I may be wrong, but I believe it to be the truth.
But it could lead to violence.
It could lead to violence.
And you are concerned.
Definitely.
I didn't know that. I didn't know you were concerned. Not that I don't think you necessarily should be concerned. That's not your job. But I didn't know that you were concerned about that.
And by the way,
But there's nothing. I'm
not against violence. People, the other day I spoke about activism, because I think that activism is, and then people came to me and then, but what about Hezbollah? Do you support it? I said, no, this is not activism. We are in such a terminological mess. This is freedom fighting. Freedom. I see it all the time. People, we are so contaminated by new left nonsense. Because were you a lefty at any stage?
Yeah, I went through the motions. As you do. Everyone,
Yeah, the thing with me,
but not.
I was
not in that way.
I saw myself as a lefty at a certain stage, and I was fascinated by it. It took me some years that I didn't understood it. Nobody understood, but anyone else was talking about it. The other day I was with very clever people. They are kind of business people who wanted to consult with me about some issues with my thoughts, and it was amazing because every time I said a word that they were not sure about, they asked me. Which is something that in academia you never done,
I'm a clever person.
So I speak some basic stuff, I said, what's that, and then it came to dialectics. I said, we hear this word all the time, but what do they mean when they say, well, it's actually very, very complicated, and I realized
that it's like a discussion.
Dialectic, we can talk about it. It's the idea that reality is the outcome of a battle between two opposing theses, but
so there's no. But the Hegelian. So there's no truth.
But the Hegelian, when you, for instance, look at master-slave dialectics in Hegelian thought, it is a very, very deep process. And you're not necessarily sure whether you can ever be in a kind of in a transcendental position to understand the full scale of the dialectic process. And then I understood, for instance, that when it comes to Marx and the relatively misguided Jewy and banal understanding of dialectics that actually led to a complete misinterpretation of Hegel for years, I realized that he was again projecting something very, very Jewish. When it comes to when it comes to capitalism, you find a lot of very powerful Jews running banks and Wall Street and so on, the center of capital, And then you realize that their descent
the same people.
It's the same people.
That's right, yeah.
So you have humanity and you have Jews on the same pole, and then at a certain stage, the Goyim, the Gentiles, they understand it. They said, "Oi, oi!" But by then, the Jews forgot about that. They moved to the next one. The next one, you find out that there is Israel, Zionism, and neoconservatism, and they do some awful things, and they turn, the promised land into a promised planet, and they bring more. And then we realize that the descent is the same Moscovich and Dershowitz and Chaimkes and Yosef. And by the time that you understand that, the Jews are in the next space, and you don't even know what it is. So now, rather than talking about the micro dialectic, maybe you want to take the micro dialectic between the capital and the descent, or the neoconservative, you start to see a line in history, and this is the real dialectic.
Fancy that surrounds you, right? Like on Facebook, right? Doesn't it bother you? And you said, very genuinely, I don't know. It's always been like that. I don't know. Being a public figure, and you are a complete public figure, right?
Mm.
And let me say what I think. I think a public figure is a different kind of human being. It's a very profound difference in your life. I think. I'm not one myself.
I'll tell you something. You know me for many years. Have you noticed that I'm very shy in person?
I know you. I do know you actually quite well, and I do know you're very shy as a person. I know you. I know. Probably like most people in your position, loneliness, an essential, absolute, basic, fundamental loneliness, unfortunately accompanies people such as yourself.
I don't feel lonely, but I don't really need the social interaction.
It's not. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about. Not even that you feel lonely. You are lonely.
Yeah, maybe, but it never. What I'm saying, it's never been a problem. But the
yes,
issue,
I do. I can see that you're shy.
now there are a lot of. I mentioned it before, kind of an hour ago, whatever. I don't know how long we have been talking, but I realized that with my
Celebrity.
disciples,
Uh-huh.
in a lot of cases, they follow me and they think that they're with me, and by the time they think that they reach my latest thought, they find out that I'm in a completely different
I think it's
place. I heard it before. Gilad, but you told us A, B, C, and
I think it's worse than that.
yeah.
I think, and this is no fault of yours.
Yeah.
I think sometimes you give people license to think and talk crap.
There is,
Because they don't really understand what you're doing.
there is something about.
Not everyone, of
There
course.
is something for sure. Listen, it's very I can see. I can sometimes go on my Facebook. I'm not very active there, and I see the discussions that is held around my thoughts, and then there are like sometimes 400 and 500 comments, and but there is one thing that I don't do. I don't delete people,
No.
and I don't delete comments.
Mhm.
And it is very interesting because recently there is a guy called Steve Randall who is
Yes, I've seen it.
you've seen him.
Yes, I've seen it.
And is a banal, pretty lame, apparently American Jewish leftist. Is involved with this fair.org, which is another system that is there to impose political correctness on us. Anyway, and he's commenting and harassing myself and other people, but I let him be. But then I realized what he's saying, and this was very interesting for me. He's saying to people, go and look what is happening on Gilad Facebook page with all those Holocaust deniers and anti-Semite and so on and so on and so on. And then I realized, what is Facebook? What is social network and all networks? It's basically the Judification of our leisure time. Basically, they let each of us run a synagogue, and a lot of people have synagogues. Yeah, I'm kind of a local rabbi or an international rabbi.
I'm a little rabbi.
But then they tell me, and now it is down to you to secure the correctness of your new synagogue. So it's actually a very, very clever system of manipulating and dictating correctness in the age of the internet. Do you understand? This is exactly what he's doing. Oh, look at Gilad, and then if I don't want to be harassed by him or by, his fellow guardians of Zion,
You can defend it.
you know, for sure, but I don't. It's okay.
No, right, you don't.
You know, I don't.
Right.
I don't, but because this is how I learn about the universe we are living in. For me, what is more, the way I work, I rather than looking at the historical documents and so on, and you know, which is what the historians is doing, I'm looking at films. I'm looking at books. I'm looking at poetry, and I'm looking at the kind of arguments even on Facebook. This complaints by him was extremely revealing for me. He basically wanted me to become a commissar, a Jewish commissar on my Facebook, and I won't. I am now extremely advanced in identifying the Jew in any form of political discourse or exchange. It's incredible. Yesterday I was asked about a very important writer.
And the Jew is about ideology.
A Jew, but I mean a tribal,
godless ideology.
godless, tribal
Right.
affiliation. It is interesting. And this is very hard for me to say. In most cases, it is the complete lack of ethical capacity. This is something that actually I borrowed from my mom, and she borrowed it from Heidegger actually, probably. Jews have 10 commandments. We have 10 commandments. Don't kill, don't steal, don't that, don't that, don't that, don't that. Ethical people don't need 10 commandments. They know that they cannot kill, they know that it's not right to steal. This is why when we had Lord Goldsmith as our Attorney General, which is with his Jewish government of Blair, funded by the LFI, the Labor Friends of Israel, the increase of laws in this country was in thousands of percents.
What you're saying is there's no right or wrong, there's only rules.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
That's it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the right of to be an ethical human being, which is the Athenian option as opposed to Jerusalem, is to find the truth in yourself. You don't need a law. Last week I had an interview here with Kara from VT, from Veterans Today. It was actually for People Voice TV. And she asked me, and where is God in all of that? And I told her, I'm here. No, I told her, God, and this is something that we got from Christianity, is the inner God. Is the capacity to close your eyes and to ask yourself what is right and what is wrong. To find the goodness in yourself. You don't kill because it doesn't agree with the goodness in yourself, not because of you have 10 commandments that you got from God in Sinai.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Good.
I don't remember what was the question.
Nor do I. I'm trying to remember. I'll ask you another one. What about your mum? Right, now your mum,
Bless her.
I think I can talk, right? I can talk. Believe me, I can talk. But when I meet Gilad's mum, I am outclassed, right? Absolutely outclassed.
She is a very unique human being.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm very lucky.
You've learned a lot from her.
I'm very lucky because my mom is probably one of the best living philosophers. And I had there, and I studied with some of the best philosophers myself, and I had such an incredible thinker as my mentor.
Mm-hmm.
And the great thing, and I understand it because I'm myself mentoring quite a lot of people these days, some of them academics and so on. To be a great mentor is to point out to a person on a text, on an idea that is not necessarily related. It's not that you come to a historian and then I grasp over that and okay and read that, it fits. It's actually the ability to, as I said before, to inspire you to think, to develop this interconnectivity. And my mom is extremely inspiring in that sense. And it's great because she sees me as probably very much in the same light, you know. So we have an incredible dialogue, and to a certain extent, she is more radical than me on some issues, but unlike me, being, in spite of being shy, being a public person, she's very quiet. So she writes and writes and writes, and she doesn't publish, and she's probably also afraid of the consequences, the possible consequences of her thoughts. But I don't have, but I totally understand it. The big difference between my mom and myself is that my mom sees Judaism at the core of it all, and
the religion.
Judaism, and I'm definitely not a defender of Judaism. I actually argue that historically, at least, we can see that rabbinical Judaism wasn't involved with any genocidal attempt. I actually believe that Jews have become involved in a political and cultural disaster through the process of assimilation. The invention of the godless Jew is problematic, and this is something that is related to Judaism, but in a not maybe in a direct manner. So, and this in itself is a very interesting debate.
I try to. What do you understand by the term anti-Semitic? What does it mean to you?
You are familiar with my comical book, another book that I never published, and I probably will publish at a certain stage. Anti-Semitic are basically observant people, usually of Jewish origin. Anti-Semitic are people who are calling a spade, and honestly, in most cases, they are Jews. And Otto Weininger explained it already in 1902. He argued that when you don't like something, when you hate something, it is usually because there is something in you which you don't like.
I'd say that's pretty true.
And this is pretty true. And he said this explains why many of the so-called anti-Semites are actually Jews, why many of the homophobes.
But how else can you know anything as to dislike it so much unless it's in you?
This is exactly the thing. This is exactly
what else is there to dislike in this world?
The most beautiful thing, and this is why
so arrogant to dislike anything that isn't you.
And this is why many anti-Semites and so-called anti-Semites, people who are actually very critical of Jewish culture actually know very well what they talk about. The body of knowledge, because they are either Jews themselves.
Because they know what it feels like to feel special.
Yeah, but we have another bunch of people who are called anti-Semites. And by the way, maybe it's important that I make a clarification. I have never come across any person who ate Jews for being Jews.
Nor have I.
Yeah,
I've met many people who've been driven to dislike Jews because of Jewish bad behaviour.
Yeah.
But I've never met anybody who hated Jews simply because they're Jews.
Yeah, and besides, as I mentioned many times, this is actually a Jewish joke, Jews are actually very nice people. It's just 15 million of them that give them such a bad name.
I know the answer to this question though, but I'll ask it anyway. You call yourself an ex-Jew. You say it, God knows you say it so many times. I'm an ex-Jew, I'm an ex-Jew, I'm an ex-Jew. Right? Well, you might be. The only reason I think now you might be is because of the Israeli thing. Because in a sense, all Israelis are
but I always said it. As an Israeli, we identified with... We had the capability, and many of us did. We identified with a land that we believe belong to us now, but I'm also always... But also, as you know, I call myself... proud self-hating, and obviously there is a contradiction. You're either an ex-Jew or a proud self-hating, and I own my contradictions. I bounce between the two. No, I'm not a postmodernist, but I allow myself to be at times. Yeah, so it's nothing too clever, but the reasons why I'm an ex-Jew.
Well, hold on. Why do you call yourself an ex-Jew if you never were, in a sense?
Because this is a very good question. The initial reason, that I really decided to call myself an ex-Jew, and probably the reason that I call myself a proud self-hating Jew, is because once I started to talk my mind, people told me, you can say it because you're a Jew. So it was very important for me to tell people, you know what? I'll call myself an ex-Jew and will be subject to the ultimate form of Jewish harassment, because these are the people they hate the most. These are the people that they nail to the wood. And we'll see what happens. And I call myself an ex-Jew, and it indeed it provoked anti-Zionist Jews to chase me. It's okay. I survived it.
I saw your name in a list today, and I was in the list.
Yeah.
Of crypto Jews who were pretending to be, and who are really promoting Jewish interests. You were there. I was there. Who else was there? Brother Nathaniel, Brother Nathaniel?
Yeah, I think that this is what I came across it. Somebody said it to me.
Oh, right. It's been taken down now.
Really?
I don't know why. Nothing to do with me, I promise you. But 10 minutes after I saw it, it was taken down.
Yeah. I tell you the truth, to a certain extent, against my will. And this is another reason why I call myself an ex-Jew. I make these people look good in the eyes of some. Because, the Jewish people, because they say, oh, he looks Gilad Atzmon, he's exposing it, he's a good Jew, and I said, no, so I'm an ex-Jew. But you're still, there is no way, and there is no way to deal with it, I can just declare myself. The left always insist that you are entitled to self-determine who you are. So I said, all right, so I'm an ex.
So it sounds like
it's not good enough.
Sounds like it's marketing more than anything else.
It's not marketing. There are a lot of issues here. One, we are dealing with facilitating critique. So if you think that the fact that I am a Jew allows me to say what I say, so from now on I will be an ex-Jew and I still say what I want to say. Okay, so I cannot do more than that.
I don't
You
take
know,
that. I don't take that view. It's not a view. I am what I am, and I can't not be what
For
I
sure.
am. And it's crazy to pretend
For sure.
to not be
For
what I
sure,
am.
for sure. But in your case, it is definitely different than mine, because I was an Israeli.
Yeah, I think that's the thing.
And
That's why you
although I
can.
lived in the Jewish state, I identified largely with a national aspiration or national apparatus, patriotic. I visited the synagogue a few times with my grandfather. I think that my father never took me to the synagogue. Never. Definitely not. It was my father would join us, but it was a grandfather issue, and the grandfather issue was because they were identified as Jews. My grandfather, definitely my revisionist grandfather, was identified as a Jew in the diaspora.
Right. So he had that experience.
But the most interesting issues here is that culturally there are definitely Jewish aspects in my personality, whether it is because of my upbringing in a Jewish state, and it is also be possible, as we discussed earlier, that it has something to do with with me being partially part of this Jewish cognitive elite. And for me, self-awareness is an endless attempt to identify the Jew in me, to fight it, but also to learn a lot from it.
Well, I do exactly that, but I don't fight it. I've no need to fight it.
Yeah.
Why should I fight it?
You don't
I'm
have
not.
to.
I'm not. I exhibit lots of Jewish characteristics that I know are hard for other people to take.
Yeah.
But I know I'm not hurt. I know I'm not hurting anybody.
I tell you, it's very interesting. Why do I fight it? Why I fight it, and why you don't fight it?
I think it's because you're an Israeli. I really do. I really
This is
think
the
that's
answer.
terribly important, which is something I've learned today.
This is
I really
exactly
think
the
it is
answer.
an answer. Yes.
We Israelis, we define ourselves by military negation, by a violent form of negation.
Right. Well, I certainly don't do that.
Yeah.
No,
And this
it's we are what we are, as far as I'm concerned. And if I despise anything, it's those people who say I'm not.
But
And
you
they
know,
are.
there is something that I realized recently. You know, I grew up in Israel and never been subject. We don't have identity. Sorry, we probably have now, but we didn't have identity politics in the Israel I grew up in. This is something that you can understand. You shouldn't have identity politics if everybody is a country is supposed to become a melting pot.
Right.
But at the same time, we had a lot of the structure was made of a lot of different kind of Jews. Yemeni Jews, Moroccan Jews, Iraqi Jews, then kind of second, third, fourth, fifth classes. Then you have the Ashkenazi elite, but within the Ashkenazi elite you have the Russian and German aristocracy. Okay. But still, there was rise of political in the 70s, that we had the Black Panthers that were kind of representing the Moroccans, but it didn't mature into, we borrowed some concept that we didn't really realize. We were not aware of identity politics. The first time I became aware of identity politics as a really vivid form that demands your affiliation or understanding was when I came to Britain in 93 or 94, and I went through the process of registration in the university, and they told me you have to join now the student union. So I went into a room. It's like everybody is doing this registration in the same day or whatever. I went into a room. It was kind of a big room with a lot of different groups and desks, tables or whatever, and each desk was different unions. And said, "All right, how can I join?" And they asked me, "Where are you from?" And I said, "I'm from Israel." So I said, "You go to the Jewish student
and
union."
that was a surprise to you.
This was a shock because but I said, "No, I don't want to identify as a Jew," you know. So I said. So there was a problem because I couldn't join the Chinese or.
Tell me, because I've got to go in a minute. If Israel cut off all links with world Jewry, do you think they might have a hope of living where they're living?
Definitely.
That's the key.
Definitely, and this is something that I say
for
years. I think that world Jewry and the process of identification on part of world Jewry with Israeli belligerence is definitely something that removes us from peace, and this is the reason why the Jews for Peace and the Jewish Voice for Peace and International Jewish, all these Jewish good Jews, they try to deviate the discussion and stop us looking into the Jewish element in the Jewish state.
So if they did that, would you say...
But why would they do it?
Well, leave that aside. If they did that, would you say there is a new nation in the Middle East?
By the way, there is a new nation in the Middle East. Some people even say that they are the worst kind of Arabs. This is Israel. There are definitely...
There's a new identity.
There is definitely a new identity, and the identity is still kind of emerging. You know, they are changing. The big question, and again, the same Ali Abunima tried to stop me when I present this question, but is whether the Israelis understand, whether they grasp the notion of peace, whether they can find peace in themselves. And I argue that so far there is no coherent or consistent notion of peace, harmony, reconciliation in the Hebrew language. Shalom doesn't mean peace.
I know it means security. But would they not grasp that pretty quickly when faced with military defeat?
I don't think that this is something they are going to face unless you want to talk about it theoretically. And one of the reasons is because they possess the ultimate destructive weapons, and their cultural narrative provides them with the logos for using this narrative. For instance, the narrative of Samson and Masada, which are suicidal narratives that didn't exist as far as the diaspora Jewry are concerned, are fundamental. They are elementary in the Israeli psyche. Now, this is very interesting, because one thing that torment the Israelis, they're not afraid of Palestinian skirmishes in the front, was Iran possessing a nuclear weapon, because this would mean that they have to think twice next time. Now, this is why I argue for very many years that if we want to have peace in the Middle East, all we need is a Palestinian nuclear weapon, or Iranian nuclear weapon, or Syrian nuclear weapon. But the next question is, who wants peace in the Middle East? Do the Americans want peace in the Middle East? It doesn't look like.
Mhm.
And this is the only clever thing that Chomsky said, as far as I'm concerned. He said, the Americans, they don't want peace, they want peace process, which means continuation of war.
Are they frightened of Hezbollah?
They should be.
And they should be.
They should be. They
Telling
should
me
be.
they
And
should
sometime they are. But one thing that is clear about the Hezbollah is that it is not aggressive. It is not aggressive. It had territorial issues with Israel, which are either totally resolved or almost resolved, and the Hezbollah proved that it doesn't.
If someone can defend themselves against Israel, that's military defeat for Israel.
You're right.
Their whole modus vivendi is gone.
You're right.
They cannot have someone who can defend themselves on their border.
But it's more than defending themselves. The Hezbollah is more than defending themselves. Hezbollah defeated Israel.
It's an ideal. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. But okay, if you want to talk about this,
It's the power of blasphemy.
This is a very interesting subject, and I can tell you how Israel dealt with it. For Israel security, Israel intelligence, power of deterrence is the most crucial. Israel power of deterrence was destroyed, annihilated, disappeared, faded, evaporated in 2006. As a result, and this is something very interesting, as a result, the Israeli military elite was wiped out. They kicked out the chief of staff. I think Dan Chalutz it was. They changed their entire doctrine. They brought Ashkenazi, who came from a completely different military upbringing. They revised their concept with a clear attempt in 2 years or 3 years later, it was actually 2 years, to launch another attack on a easier enemy that would bring up restore morale and restore the power of deterrence. So we had 2006, the Second World War, the Second Lebanon War, and then we had
Third.
Was it
Third. There's one in 79.
okay, no,
One in
because
81.
the 82 is what we call the first. The first one was Litani operation.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, Litani operation. Second Lebanon War. Second, what the Israeli called the second.
Lebanon. It's
the
2006.
second. 2006, and 2 years later, or
So they-
18 months
they
later,
took on
we
something
have a
like that.
new general. We have a new, many new generals, new chief of staff. They choose easier enemy, civilian population. They blast them with white phosphorus. This is Operation Cast Lead, and at least in the Israeli eyes, they restored their power of deterrence. Now, these games of power of deterrence.
Did it? Because
Very big question. Very big. Definitely military.
There's military victories that can be well dressed up as victories.
No, it was. Listen.
There's some operations that are with all the spin in the world. There's still a civilian population.
Let me be very clear. I don't. I wrote a lot about it. It actually, they may restored militarily the power of deterrence, but they also realized that their political and military maneuvering is gone. They brought on themselves the United Nations and this Dewey Goldstein report, and Richard Falk joined in, and and they were exposed for what they are, a genocidal society. And if you look at it, 48, 67, 82, 48, 7 massacres. You know about. You can count them all. You dedicated your adult life to the dearest in one. 750,000 Palestinians are ethnically cleansed. 67, another major ethnic cleansing. Massive, a lot of people killed. 82, 20,000 Palestinians, 20,000 Lebanese civilians are killed. Southern Lebanon and Beirut are wiped out, and Israel still getting away with it. 48, they got away with it. 67, they got away with it. 82, they got away with it. In 2006, I don't remember how many civilians died.
1,300, 1,400.
1,300, and they start to get into trouble. And then, 18 months later, 2008, and it's clear that they cannot get away with it. And they try it again with Mavi Marmara, and it's clear that it's not happening. So in spite of Palestinian elite being subservient, dysfunctional and impotent, and not pursuing the international law that, according to Richard Falk, I heard him 2 days ago, that is on their side. They can take Israel now to the Hague on war crimes, in spite of Palestinian elite, the political elite, not doing their job. The Israelis are now, Israeli aggression is now suppressed. They're facing a wall on that front.